Welcome to Trivia Viral. Our channel covers all the latest analysis and recaps on TV shows and movies, as well as interesting stories and facts that you may not have known. So sit back, relax, and subscribe to our channel if you have been enjoying our videos so far. The film starts with a young man who unexpectedly becomes totally deaf and is forced to walk around in a semi-dead building in order to avoid being found at the stoplight. The man suddenly becomes blind and must be taken to a psychiatric hospital when a red light suddenly turns red and the driver can't move his car. Cars lining the road in front of the blind man start humming at him loudly. Some city officials start asking about a man who suddenly becomes blind. They quickly realize that he may have suddenly become blind. X drives the blind man home and helps with the clearing of the traffic. Blind man, who has suddenly gone completely blind, says that he looks like he's floating on milk. Or like he's floating on milk. Blind people have to be taken to an asylum where they can legally be treated as prisoners of war. But this video is sponsored by QD. QD is Asia's largest platform for students, tutors, and coaches to find and book lessons online or offline, all from a single platform. Sign up at QD today. As a result of the incident, when the driver of the car whose driver had gone to jail was suddenly able to leave the car, the driver of the rescue vehicle left the vehicle too. When his wife finds out that his wife is blind, she panics because she finds out that her husband is also blind. He tells his wife to take him to the nearest eye doctor. Doctors do a good eye exam on a blind man who suddenly becomes completely blind but are unable to determine the cause of his blindness. Because blindness is very common, everyone is afraid to leave their homes and go to work, but the blind man is hopeful and hopes that his wife can take him to a hospital. Doctors suggest that the man be taken to an emergency hospital. Driver who steals the car from a fellow worker is stopped by a police checker. He's scared that he might be caught, so he steals another driver's car. He's scared that he might get caught when he illegalizes, changes lanes, and abandons his car. But the man steals another man's car and stops driving. He becomes blind like the man he took it from. Government officials recognize that there are blind people in the area and decide to build a new facility in an abandoned asylum. Crews dressed in dangerous clothes arrive at the house of a blind man to pick him up from his hospital bed. She's concerned that he may become blind, and so she goes with him in a van that resembles a blind man, so she can watch him get isolated. Each ward has a leader who represents them and allows them to talk with the world. People are now convinced that they no longer have any future, and that it must be the responsibility of some blind anxiety that the inflicted people will be without food because they receive no food because of delivery delays. Soldiers manning the gates of the defunct asylum start acting very violently towards people and refuse to allow basic medicines to be delivered, so that an infection could suddenly cause death. One of the men is an elderly man who wears an invisible eye patch that says that he might have gone blind suddenly. When the woman's husband tells her that he had gone blind suddenly, she says that he should have moved to a different ward. One day, a patient who has had a stroke, who has been isolated, tries to leave his cell and go to the ward where the doctor works. He refuses to go to that ward. Old men always have a radio handy, and so the doctor's wife lets them move around by letting them use their own telephones. He told the doctors that suddenly becoming blind is very common. In other countries, blind people have suddenly become very common. Government officials all over the globe tried hard to solve this problem, but they could never agree on a solution. Things soon got out of control. People stopped talking to each other, and even talking to other countries. Dr. X and his wife are killed when the ward leader tries to deceive a blind man to drive him home. He tries unsuccessfully to force him to leave the place. He becomes increasingly weak and is no more unable to take medications. He becomes increasingly desperate and steals some of his friends' cars. Thieves continue to investigate the case of a blind man who becomes ill with a deadly infection. They reveal all that the doctor's wife has told him. He then tells his wife that he was trying to kill someone to get some money. He wants her to allow him to leave the asylum. It takes weeks for people who are suffering from an infection like this to recover. Doctor's husband tells him to stop lying to her. His wife says that the woman is lying to him. In order to avoid being arrested, the thief tries to steal a car and go to a nearby hospital. He eventually shoots himself and kills himself. He demands that everyone hand over all the expensive things they own to him in exchange for a few days' supply of food. In some cases, people are forced to surrender valuable things because they fear they may be the next victim of a terrible disease. They're afraid that they may be deprived of some of their basic rights in return for only receiving a small amount of food. The king of Ward 3 suddenly orders men to give women to him in exchange for food. Many of the infected refuse to comply with his orders. People are reluctant to do what the king demands them to do, and so it takes 3 days to deprive them of food. Doctor's wife calls the government and asks for food from the prisoners, but the guards say they're all sad, and they can't help her. Ward 3 is extremely hungry and refuses to allow outside food deliveries. Demands Doctors advise them to take some medicine as soon as possible. Dr. Dillon told the staff members that if they try to get some food, they should go to the nearest store to get some food. He says that if they try to do something that they feel like, it should be something that they do. They become increasingly hopeless and desperately need someone to represent them. He's afraid that others will try to kill him, but his wife agrees to let him go. Some of them were locked in their houses because they were afraid that another war might start. Eventually, a group of infected people decide to murder the leader of their ward. Doctor's husband is called to asylum. His wife is forced to climb into a van to go with him. A group of Ward 3 soldiers sneaks into Ward 3 to set a fire. There they start a firefight. One day, a girl who lives in Ward 3 sneakily gets inside Ward 1 of a demolished asylum and starts a fire. Those who have gotten a gun in a robbery attempt to use it to attack the leaders of other wards. This forces Ward 4 to confront the leaders of Ward 3 and confront them. One day, the blaze destroys the buildings in Ward 1 and causes chaos in Ward 2. Everyone gets out of the cells and goes to the guardhouse. She attempts to call the guardhouse but is told that no one is here. She finds that the locked doors to the hospital have now been removed and everyone has left the hospital. They're horrified at how far down the city has gone. They also see the terrible things that have happened to the people who live nearby. In the city, everyone is walking around looking very grim. Dr. John and his wife decide to go to the city for some food. They decide to take some food from the stores. Dr. X tries to tell his wife that he missed her, but she freezes up and refuses to listen to him. She decides to go to a local supermarket to get food, but when she gets there, all the food items are gone. They're becoming extremely paranoid because they want to get food. She goes down to her basement and finds a big pile of food that she'd never seen before. She takes 2 bags filled with food and goes up the stairs to get some food. But the poor people have become aware that the woman who stole his car is actually her friend. They begin to attack her. Doctors arrive at the house to help a blind man who has suddenly become completely blind. He gets out of the van and runs. The next day, her husband and his family go to the lake house where his parents live and where his wife works. Even though the people are suddenly completely blind, nobody has broken into their houses. Luckily, nobody has entered their house. She's responsible for cleaning up all the mess that has been made in the kitchen area to make everyone look at home. Everyone supports one another as if they're all part of the same family. The 3 women are seen having a great time while they take a shower. They're all smiling and comfortable. Dr. H and his wife gives a nice talk to the women and explains that they look very strange because it's like they've not seen one another for a while. He's very pleased that he met so many good people in this time of need. Doctors' wives are horrified when their husband suddenly becomes blind. They decide to take him to a quarantine facility. They make breakfast special for them and they enjoy it. Then, the man is surprised to discover that he can see everything that exists. Suddenly, the first man sees a man who has never seen anything so gorgeous. He says that everything looks wonderful. Then, he goes to the houses and greets everyone. Everyone in the school is thrilled to learn they need to learn more in order to become disabled. They believe that it only takes a short time for them to get normal sight. What are your thoughts about this story? Let us know in the comments section below. Subscribe if you would like to see more similar videos, and give us a thumbs up to get more recommendations of our videos. Be the first to watch the latest videos by clicking the bell icon. See you on the next video.